Welcome, everyone. My name is Nikki Richardson. I'm the Associate Director for Thousand Oaks Arts, the fundraising and presenting partner of the Bank of America Performing Arts Center. And we are live here today, very excited to have a collection of all of our local performing arts groups from Ventura County, from many of our performing arts groups from Ventura County. And we're just gonna engage in a little bit of a conversation about the state of the performing arts, how this last year has been for all of us, and what we can expect in the year coming ahead. So if you would, I think I'm not going to have everyone introduce themselves at the moment, but what I would say is, as you start answering the question, just kind of give us your title, and obviously, hopefully your organization name is in your name on your Zoom square. Okay, so let's just kick it off. So first of all, silver linings, and what kept you up all night during this last year? So that's a double-edged sword, right? We had lots of silver linings as a result of the pandemic, and there were things and challenges that kept us up all at night. So who would like to kick it off?
I will.
Paul, go ahead. Paul, I saw Paul's hand, and then Cindy, you're next.
Paul Graham. I'm a board member for Thousand Oaks Philharmonic and also the treasurer. As far as the things that kept us up all night, it was our inability to put the concerts on that we normally do 3 times a year. As far as the silver linings went, we were blessed with calendar alignment. We had our once every 2-year major fundraiser 1 week before we were locked down in the state of California for COVID. And the second thing that really helped us is that we have an all-volunteer board, so there were no payroll obligations. We engaged the professional orchestra 3 times a year, but the orchestra members are only compensated when and if only when they play in one of our concerts. And for those of you who are not familiar with TO Phil, our charter is to put promising young Ventura County soloists in front of a professional orchestra with a professional conductor. And they play classical music, typically piano and violin, with no sheet music. So these are young prodigy kids who are well-rounded, just exactly the kind of kids that you want to support.
Cindy, go ahead.
I'm Cindy Murray from 5 Star. I guess it does show. And I think my silver lining was it gave me time to learn a lot about my business that I didn't know. Although I've been with the company 15 years, this is a kind of a different role running the whole show. And it gave me a chance to see what else 5 Star could do in the community other than putting on musicals on stage. I mean, we kept busy. We did 5 car concerts, park concerts, summer educational classes. We did a virtual fundraising concert, which we've never filmed anything. So that was also new and something I know now we can do. And a musical theater community competition, which was very well received. I think we got over 300 submissions. And so we did everything we could to stay engaged. And I think TOArts in the city of Thousand Oaks hiring us to perform 3 of those concerts was a big plus to us. So we can't wait.
Sorry. That's wonderful. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah, on October 15th. So we're planning to start our season then, and we're very excited.
Well, we're very excited to have you back in the theater. Can't wait. Scott, I saw your hand raised.
What kept me up at night was continually reading and rereading California Department of Public Health regulations that changed every 30 seconds there. And then how many people, raise your hand if you know Betty from COVID compliance? She always just sends back the regulations and pretty much tells you to figure it out yourself. Silver linings are that we not only went outside the box, we built boxes, we stuck kids inside boxes outside, filmed them. If anyone needs the use of a Blackmagic 8 4K television studio, we now own one of those things. So I'd like to see it out in the community for doing things like that. And then, Jonathan, can I say? We just are waiting for a contract to arrive to move Les Mis back to the Forum Theater, opening in July. So that's really exciting for us there. We managed to keep things going thank goodness that we've done fundraising in advance because we've pretty much depleted most of our reserves, but we did provide services for kids. Unfortunately, my community theater had to remain closed up here, so none of our smaller groups and other kinds of things. We tried to keep comedy going for a while. We tried to do some drive-in movies. And we had a few virtual classical concerts there, but all of the, like TOArts does things up here and stuff. We're looking forward to getting all that kind of stuff back up here in the very, very near future because things have changed.
Wonderful. Ranjini, go ahead, and then Kim.
Hello, everyone. This is Ranjini from TOArts. We're a relatively new organization, about 18 months old. We're focused on bringing science and arts together and working on programs, both, science, arts, and at the interface. As far as the silver lining goes, I think what I wanted to mention was the pandemic made us sort of think outside the box, and we featured several different artists from around the world. And two of our broad initiatives are in the arts is the Art Abilities for All initiative, where we provide an exclusive platform for artists with disabilities globally. And then also the cross-cultural concerts, where we bring in artists who, perform music or dance of another culture. And the silver lining being that despite the pandemic, we were able to reach out to many different artists around the world. It gave rise to many online collaborations between the artists and organizations. And so I think while we're opening up and we could do some of this live, we're hoping to continue having the online aspect alive, because I think one of the things that happened during the pandemic is that the artists had no opportunity to perform. And, in fact, a lot of them did not have an income. So keeping an online platform alive would ensure like bread and butter constantly, irrespective of whether we do live concerts or not. So I'm hoping that we'll continue that. And thanks to Nikki as well, for some good ideas on how to leverage some of these for educational aspects towards children. So that was, to me, the major silver lining. Thank you.
Kim, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, I'm Kim Maselli, Artistic Director of Pacific Festival Ballet. And I think the silver lining that comes to my mind is the number of alumni and professional dancers that had to return home to Southern California and really had no place to go except for doing ballet classes in their kitchens and living rooms. And we have a 10,000 square foot facility that was sitting empty for months on end. So we had artists and alumni from Broadway, New York City Ballet, San Francisco Ballet, Kansas City Ballet, Cleveland, just all across the country home. And I found it a beautiful thing to be able to, one at a time, let them in the studio and just work on choreography. And it kind of, during the course of the year, became a safe haven for these artists to come in and still work on their craft and connect with their dance community. So it was nice to just kind of bring everybody back in. The keep awake all night was watching the rent of our 10,000 square foot building come in month after month and not really have any resources to pay what once was a fairly easy bill to pay. So by December, it was a little frightening, but I have to say, we had a compassionate landlord, PPP loans, we did some fundraising, and we just had tremendous support, which really helped us along the way.
Alex, then Natalia.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Seitlin. I'm here as the director of CVYO, but I just wanted to begin to say how grateful I am that you guys are all here. It's not something I take for granted anymore, and I admire the dedication and legacies of every organization here today. Nikki, I love that you brought up such a great question for just kind of what kept us up at night. For me, one of the most interesting qualities about music as an artist that as you study it, you gain the ability to internalize it and have every note of a Tchaikovsky concerto or Mahler symphony alive in your mind, and that can change your life forever, and it can give you new perspective on life and the world. I've seen it happen countless times to young musicians, and the thought of taking that away from a young musician, just that's what kept me up at night, is telling a high school senior they'll no longer be able to finish studying the symphony they began, or telling a junior that the repertoire they were looking forward to next year will not be accessible, and telling a younger student that their progress has been set back. Those are all heavy thoughts that weighed on my decision making this past year. But we found ways to mitigate that. I feel like for Silver Lining, it's given us a renewed focus on what's really important. We've taken a look at every aspect of our organization and asked honestly if it accomplishes our goals. We've been able to refocus on our students and their personal and musical health. And we feel like as an organization, we're actually in a strong place going forward into the coming year.
Natalia?
Thank you for asking the question. I've been thinking about it since all of you have been talking about this. The silver lining, definitely learning new skills. I think, Cindy, I can echo your comments. We have become a media company because, well, virtual engagements for us were sort of a marketing. That's what you do for marketing purposes. It was never your core product before. So learning the number of frames per second, how to use a teleprompter, how to write a script, how to, get the attention, what's the distribution channel, what's the frequency, what's the price? Oh my God. I mean, I don't think I have stopped listening to podcasts about how to be a media company, how to market, et cetera, et cetera. So the learning curve in the last 18 months, I think that I probably can now graduate from the virtual performances and actually teach a course on it. So that was one. And in terms of the other silver linings, we never stopped teaching online. Our Harmony Project students, we provided services to them, and after school program was up and running. So getting to know them, getting to know their families, getting to know the environment, that was a silver lining. So you kind of see a person as a whole versus that little kid who comes with a violin for the afternoon rehearsal. So that was one of the silver linings. What keeps us up at night is that we are very grateful to get a lot of subsidies during the pandemic. Everybody embraced the arts and said, okay, we want to see you guys on the other side of it, side of the equation. I am reading a lot and listening to the experts who say that the trends are that we're not going to be going back to pre-pandemic levels of attendance and ticket sales until 2 years from now. Will the community support us in between while we are getting back on our feet? I think that's the most pertinent question for me and for my board, and whether we are going to be able to bridge that gap. So that's what keeps me up at night.
Jonathan?
I'm Jonathan Surratt. I'm the Cultural Affairs Director for the City of Thousand Oaks and the Bank of America Performing Arts Center. So for the items that kept me up at night, they were aplenty, and there still are. Just because things are reopening doesn't mean that there aren't still those things that kind of gnaw at you at 2 o'clock in the morning as you're thinking, gosh, what does happen when we bring staff and people back together inside the building? But one of the most significant things that I struggled with at the outset was, with limited staffing, how much of the burden to put on the existing staff that was still available and in place, and not wanting to overtax everybody else. Sometimes I actually overtaxed myself. But one of the silver linings that I found was, if you give people the freedom to want to tackle those challenges if they can and are willing, that I know we try not to use the word pivot anymore because it's overused and we all hate that word at this point. But one of the things that I found was, if you give people the space to come up with new and creative ways to do it, they do. And we've been able to leverage a lot of the community relationships and partners. And I think that's another silver lining, is it's given us an ability to reaffirm our relationships with so many of our community groups, and many of whom are on this screen. Being able to work closely with the resident companies, knowing that I would have an empty space in the theater where they might be able to come and film and record record some content is wonderful. Being able to leverage resources for pop-up arts and music festival, or for doing drive-in style concerts. All of those relationships being strengthened, I think is actually a silver lining that we can look to.
Wonderful. Before we go ahead, I would love to actually broadcast, if we can do this correctly, one of the incredible artists or performances. So I'm going to kick us off with, hopefully this works. That was amazing.
Good.
So that
Wonderful.
was a piece by Pacific Festival Ballet. And it's something that we have performed on stage year after year. I choreographed that probably 15, 16 years ago. So it was designed for stage. And this year with the Olympics coming, we really wanted to do a tribute. So theaters weren't open yet. We thought, you know what, we're just going to take it outside and re-choreograph it and format it just for whatever we can do. And it was remarkable for all the dancers because they just were willing to do anything. I mean, you saw the different elements from dancing in the dirt to basketball courts to the ocean. And just like Natalia said, expanding your horizons, inside of our organization. We found editors, special effects, filmmakers, and we just launched a whole new platform to work from. And we've done that all year. We did a full-length ballet at Christmas time. Instead of Nutcracker, we did a Holiday Angel, and the theater and Jonathan opened up the stage, and we were able to film some of it on stage. But then again, we went out in the community, and that kind of became our new thumbprint of just going out in the community and dancing wherever we could. It was a learning curve, but it was a lot of fun. But I'll have to say, I'll be happy when we get back in the theater.
Wonderful. That was beautiful. I had goosebumps. So let's move on. So, I think we sort of wrapped into this a little bit of lessons learned from the pandemic, but I want to just, again, not everyone has to answer, but just give you an opportunity to say, what is your new, another overused phrase, right? What's your new normal going to look like? What do you think will be your new way of doing business? Or is it going to be business as usual? Paul, go ahead.
Well, business for us will hopefully return to our past normal. We now are in the process of finalizing the 2 dates for our first concert since January 2020, and that will be on Friday, August 27th, and Sunday, August 29th at the Performing Arts Center. And what's held us up and actually delayed the decision process to go ahead are the restrictions that were imposed by the union that represents the professional musicians that we use. And this had mostly to do with separation distances, the need for plexiglass shields. The rule was 6 feet separation for string instrumentalists, 15 feet separation for wind instrumentalists. And since we perform in the share, there just simply is not enough stage room for us to do that. But that's been relaxed. So we're finalizing our plans. We still intend to have our typical 3 concerts, one in January, one in April, one in either June or July, depending upon how the calendar works out. So we feel we feel blessed. We've been extremely well supported by our very loyal constituent base, which has given us the opportunity to just simply pick up where we had to leave off. And Nikki, I think I sent you a couple of the performances that we did. The soloists actually performed the pieces that they would have expected to do in our concerts last year, and they were filmed in their homes. So we aired those. Those were available on our website for public consumption. And we've kept going as well as we can, but I forget who it was that talked about it. Oh, I think it was Natalia said that I've been advised by consultancy that it may take us 2 years to get back to the attendance levels, and that's an unknown for us. We really don't know what's going to happen. We may have parents and board members in the auditorium, and that's it. Hopefully not.
Beverly, and then Ranjini.
Well, I think, first of all, I just wanted to say that was a beautiful piece, Kim, just gorgeous. Wow. And I was struck by a comment that you made that I hear so often, which is, and Natalia's point too, we all learned so much, right? We all found out who knew how to operate a camera or a microphone and who knew how to make something compelling and that would keep engaging our patrons. And yet, what do we hear from each other as well as every patron that we talk to? Can't wait to get back in the building, And that's really powerful to me. That is very powerful to me. And so when I think about what the status quo was, in all honesty, as arts organizations, at least at Rubicon, sorry, I'm Beverly Ward from Rubicon Theater. Hello. At least in our small theater, we are continually pivoting. You know, I know it is an overused word, but the truth of the matter is that making live art is a very active profession. Creatively speaking, you have to be able to be flexible and nimble and fearless. So I see that how that helped us survive, and I'm certain it's true at every other arts organization in the world that survived the pandemic, is that it was that willingness to be imaginative that helped us survive. When I look forward, you know, what will the new normal be? Well, we will continue to try and be nimble and creative and innovative and all of those things that make us relevant and make people say, can't wait to get back in the building, right? But what was interesting to me from a fundraising perspective is going back to silver linings, patrons, the support of our community is absolutely what allowed us to just even show up every day and think, okay, could we make a video? Okay, could we have concerts in our car? You know, it was the patron support that allowed us to do that. But our patrons in America are stretched. They're stretched because all of us are competing for their eyes and ears and for their contributions. And so to have the PPP go into place and to have the EIDL available to arts organizations, whereas typically SBA loans wouldn't be available to nonprofits. These were real eye-openers because they were lifesavers. The pandemic exposed how vulnerable we all are as arts organizations. You know, we all feel it probably, you know, some of us daily, some of us quarterly, some of us annually, whatever. We feel that vulnerability as arts organizations for sure, but the pandemic heightened that and also showed us that when we get government support at levels that we've never seen, it makes a tremendous difference. We are a huge economic driver in America, huge economic driver, the creative sector, and yet we do not have the subsidization that other economic drivers have. So for me, I want to see the new normal in the future being a future where we make certain we're working with Americans for the Arts and other large organizations that have lobbying power to continue to get support from the government for us so that we can weather storms like this, because this won't be the last one. I'm sad to say that I'm certain of it, but I'm pretty certain we'll see maybe not 100-year pandemic, but there will be other crises. There just will. So yeah, that's for me. I hope that the new normal includes further substantial support from the government.
Yes, go ahead, Susan.
Susan Scott, Ventura Music Festival. I don't know if everyone has seen that we are going live in July. Typically, we've had the summer festival. It's been 7 or 8 concerts, including a tea and trumpets that was earlier on a given day, and a free outdoor concert in the park. For this July, we're going with what would have been the first weekend in 2021, or in 2020, excuse me. And so it's 3 artists only, and they're great. It's a great lineup. But what I'm leading up to is I think we'll have a sense with this experience as to how new the normal is, whether it's a good normal, you know, whether the normal is off. It's too early in the ticket sales yet. They're going well, but the real action for us, the volume, you know, comes later next week, post the 4th of July and so forth. So we're hopeful, but that's going to be a very good indication. In terms of your question earlier, Nikki, about keeping, you know, one up at night and so forth, getting to this point was keeping me up at night. Venues weren't available. I mean, you know, the artists are waiting. I'm feeling for the artists and the agents, you know, confirming it. For the most part, this, you know, this is a festival that's been long in the making at this point. Venues finally became available by accident. I thought originally that we would do it outdoors. I thought that people might feel safer, better outdoors, and that if that was an option along with indoors, I was going to survey our festival goers and see where the preference was. Outdoors never became possible for us in Ventura because it would have been parks and we would have staged it there, and they just were never authorized by the city. In terms of indoor venues, we've used the Ventura College Pack for the past several years. It was not available. Not to make this an overly long tale of woe, we hope to do it at Rancho Campana. Natalia is very familiar with that since the symphony was playing there. They never opened the doors. And then strictly out of desperation, actually, I'm on Facilitron. I tried Pacifica in Oxnard at the Pacifica High School, their performing arts center. That's where it is, and it's a really nice venue. So, and we did it. We're doing it as 100% vaccinated. And I think that people are excited. We'll see if the excitement begins to equal, something that matches a normal audience for us. I'm hopeful that it will. And then from there, I have to say that I would love to do something in the fall, and I'm prepared to do that, but I want to wait and see how the variant and for that matter, attendance at our July festival play out over the summer. So, that I'm sure we're all experiencing somewhat kind of what is coming next, both in terms of audience and patron interest, but also in terms of conditions. But we're hopeful.
Natalia, and then Alex.
In terms of lessons, and I think that what's here to stay, I wanted to talk about the kind of a bigger role that the arts play in the society. I think that we are all talking right now, every single organization, arts organization is talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. And through New West Symphony, Global Sounds, Local Cultures season that we created almost 16 months ago, we basically used our artistic voice to contribute to the national dialogue on the topic. And I think that's here to stay. We told our story. We had a tour of Japan, a tour of India, a tour of Iran, tour of China. We're doing America the Melting Pot this weekend, streaming with the artist, activist, trailblazing artists. And I feel that those elements, it was such a huge breakthrough, something that we didn't think that we would even were able to fathom, basically. But I think that our tour of Iran, we looked at our tour of Iran and it was watched in 55 countries. So that's beyond Thousand Oaks, that's beyond Ventura County. So we were relevant, we found our voice. And I think that's what's here to stay with us. I think the arts, we see our role is telling the story, telling about the important events in our society and important events in our community. And that's, I think, how we're thinking about next season, how we're thinking about what is our mark as the symphony and what artists are we going to put and invite and on stage. So anyway, lots of conversation. I think we don't have the answers, but we definitely have a lot of questions.
Alex, and then Scott, and then Ranjini.
So we're committing and looking forward to returning to our fully open season in the fall. There's just something special and irreplaceable about sharing the same physical space and live performance. And we're finding that so many are excited to go back, but that also a large portion are hesitant or actually even found unresponsive to people reaching out. So a major goal for us will be rebuilding the confidence of our members and our audiences. We're moving forward with consideration and care and rebuilding their confidence. So that's a major goal for us, but especially for concerts. In terms of new tools, we are actually adding online components to our fundraising events and particularly sharing our concerts, especially since we've found that there are so many family members of our young artists and our patrons that are geographically limited in attending. And it was actually very helpful to figure out how to integrate these tools. So we are looking forward to implementing that in the future.
Scott?
I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Scott Buchanan. I'm the Cultural Program Supervisor for the Conejo Recreation and Park District, and I'm up here at the Hillcrest Center for the Arts, a city building that we really appreciate having. And we have a tie into TOArts because we have a beautiful 9-foot Steinway that belongs to TOArts that we have the use of up here. I know that TO Phil and a lot of music teachers use it there. Our challenge is rebuilding things. The Hillcrest Center for the Arts is a community-based arts center complementing the Civic Arts Plaza, where the Civic Arts Plaza can handle everything from community all the way up to professional. We are kind of the place where you can get dirty and get involved. We are happy to host the 5-star rehearsals up here. We have recitals up here, and we have a small black box theater that's used by the Young Artists Ensemble and by our community theater groups, of which there are less small community theater groups. So one of my challenges and new norms will be to reestablish how that particular theater can work. I have the added pressure that I only be here till December. I'm planning on retiring at that point in time. So there's a lot of transitions going on, but we're kind of jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. So in September, we're open. Our groups are coming back already right now. We're working with them. And our Young Arts Ensemble never stopped. We just went virtual, but we're planning on going back to normal with our first production in the fall. For our family theater series. And as I mentioned, we'll be doing Les Mis in the Forum Theater for the first time in a long, long time. The city has worked with us to make that possible. And we're so happy to be back in the Forum Theater where we were for so many years. So I think the biggest challenge is the other thing that we deal with is the elementary music program in the schools. And those of you musicians can imagine how difficult it has been to try to teach chorus, band, and strings to a classroom full of people via Zoom. We lost 81% of the enrollment, but already we expect in the fall, subject to regulations, if we can get back in person at elementary schools, to have that component come back fully. So I've got my hands full. I call it plate spinning. And so, yeah, a couple of plates broke, but mostly they're still spinning. And I think that I'm able to bring my staff back. And so the Conejo Recreation Park District is really been great, and the city in supporting the arts by providing this amazing facility that touches many of the arts organizations. And we're just going to kind of solidify that. And before I leave, get all of the organization there so that whoever comes to take over will be able to work with the groups that are up here to ensure that this place can continue to provide services to local arts organizations the way we're doing.
Ranjani?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly add, and I kind of concur with Natalia, because when we launched many of our initiatives, whether it was the Art Abilities Initiative featuring artists with disabilities or the Cross Culture Initiative, these were all global. And to your point, Natalia, I think most of our artists are from different parts of the world, and we are in the process of trying to transition from being primarily online to also hosting live. And one of the challenges, I think, I'm wondering how we're going to go from sort of global to local and still maintain sort of the global impact that these programs have had. And, and I'm hoping that the community will support with that. But at the same time, to your point, it's hard to be global if you're doing local events and venues. So which brings me to the first point, where I feel like, on some level, maybe for organizations that are featuring global artists, we need to keep the online or the live aspect live, in addition to doing, live events locally in Conejo Valley. So, I mean, for me personally, that's a challenge that, I think we'll have to face. And I'm hoping that the community will support in bringing our artists from either around the world or at least from California, in Thousand Oaks and featuring some of their talents. So I just wanted to, add that.
Wonderful. If we don't have any more, I would like to showcase another performance. Natalia, will you cue this one up for us?
Sure. New West Symphony is streaming a concert called America the Melting Pot, and we this weekend. So there will be Meet the Artist program on Saturday at 7 o'clock and a concert on Sunday. So Nikki's going to show a very short clip of Florence Price Concerto performed by Laura Downs, who is a trailblazing artist, and she's also an NPR host. And we have a phenomenal lineup of composers on this program, from Valerie Coleman, Margaret Bonds, Hazel Scott, Xavier Foley, William Grant Still, and Duke Ellington, and UB Blake. So join us this weekend, and this is just a short clip of last movement of the concerto. Thank you, Nikki. And I also wanted to give a big round of applause to TOArts and Jonathan and Nikki. You guys have been so supportive of our initiatives, and you opened the doors when we were basically knocking on the closed doors. And we were able to give work to the artists. And I can't even tell you how many artists came to record with us who said, this is my first performance in 16 months and 14 months. And they all had really lumps in their throats when they were talking about how much they've missed being with musicians and artists on stage. So thank you, big kudos. And I think these partnerships, I hope they will continue in perpetuity. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm looking at the time, and I want to throw this question out to you all to consider, and then we'll wrap it up with, I think, one more performance. We expected, when we first started talking about this, when the last time we met, this was around June of last year, we were about 3 months into the pandemic at the time, and we expected the pandemic to last 3 to 6 months at most, right? So now, what would you tell your pre-pandemic self if you could? What, if anything, would you have done differently knowing what you know now? Kim.
I think I would have told myself to be, and I think we finally fell into that line, but just to not have any boundaries. You know, after having our school for 35 years and the ballet company for 25, you know, we kind of have a formula and the way things work on a good day. And it just flipped everything upside down. And I think just being fluid with that, and through that process, you realize there's more creativity to be found. There's more people to engage. Tyler Peck, who is with New York City Ballet, she's been our guest performer at Nutcracker for 12 years. And, you know, as a result of the pandemic, she came home to California, and we started collaborating on opportunities to have intensives and workshops and classes, either on Zoom, or we just finished one last week in person. And it kind of took the structure of what we had and just broke down walls, and, you know, just made us see that there's so much more that we can do if we really get thoughtful and creative instead of just doing what we always do.
Cindy, and then Jonathan.
So I feel exactly the same way, that I wish that I would have been so not afraid to try new things. Because in musical theater, you get your set, you get your singers, you get your costumes, and you go. I have learned so much this past year. I have also would like to thank TOArts and the city for supporting us, because they indeed did. And our community supported us. I mean, they've held their Mamma Mia tickets since March of 2020. And we wouldn't be here if it were not for our resident status and our subscribers and our community. So my learning lesson is just to go for it. Don't be afraid, just try it. It may work and it may not, but at least you gave it a go. There's a lot more, like Kim said, that we can all do that we have no idea we can. So I would tell myself to go stronger and faster.
I would echo those comments that, be more open to trying out new things and getting away from the hard and true of what has worked in the past, and being open to that creativity. And in the end, I think we did, but there was some resistance there, because at the beginning, like you said, Nikki, we were only expecting, we closed the offices and walked away thinking, oh, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And 15 months later, we're just now starting to come back into the office, and it's obviously a much longer period of time. So we did, in the end, figure that out. And I think the other thing that I would be trying to tell myself is it's okay to let things, let me take that back. It's okay to let some things fall by the wayside for a little bit. It's okay not to tackle everything. You're not keeping your systems moving at the same rate that they were moving before. You're focusing on different things. It's okay to set some things aside. In my case, I wish I would have done that with the extra sleeve of Thin Mints that I got from the Girl Scouts, because I need to work on getting rid of those. But it's okay to set some things off to the side, to come back to them later on, and to focus on the efforts that you really need to try to put forward.
Anyone else have any other observations about what you would tell your pre-pandemic self? I want to invite questions from our audience. If you would, if anyone is interested, to drop them in the chat. And we have a comment from Jim in the audience that says, you can tell that the musicians are enjoying what they're doing even through their masks. So it's such a true statement. As we've all said, there's nothing like performing live. It's just an extraordinary experience. And even though TOArts put on, drive-in concerts this last year in early response to the pandemic, when we were finally able to actually have people outside of their cars, sitting distanced, maybe with masks on, but at least sitting in the same space as the performer, that made such a huge difference to all of us. It was tremendously uplifting. Tracy's asking, what do you want the community to know? That she's writing an article for Conejo Valley Lifestyle magazine. It's a great opportunity. What would you like the community to know about your organizations? Jonathan, and then Cindy.
So I'm gonna take this one from a broader perspective. What I would like everybody to know is that the arts matter. You can feel the energy of the arts groups and the level of passion that everybody on this screen brings to their jobs and to their organizations to make sure that we're providing arts, culture, and entertainment for our communities and the entire county. So the arts do matter. And to the extent that you can support them or reiterate that statement to your elected officials, to anybody, to get people to come to the theater, buy 2 tickets and bring a friend with you. That's the things that I want people to know, is that the arts do matter. They have a significant impact on people's lives, and they have a significant impact on our economy, as I think it was Beverly who said. The other thing that I want people to know is, that we're not afraid. We're being cautious, and we're being cautiously optimistic. And I'm hoping the 2-year mark for those audiences coming back as they were is a little too far out. I'm hoping that we're going to see it much faster. And I will share that we have a number of shows that are already on sale, and the numbers are trending in a way that indicate that people are ready. They indicate that people are ready and willing and excited to come back. And that gives me a lot of hope for every single organization on this screen and those out in the community who aren't necessarily represented. So we are open. Tell your friends that the arts do matter, and that they matter a lot, and buy 2 tickets and bring one of them with you. to see any of these organizations because they all do excellent work out in our communities, sometimes in our venue, sometimes not in our venue, but it doesn't matter because the arts reach everybody at different stages in their lives and at different locations.
Cindy?
Well, he just said just about what I was going to say, but I was going to add when we did our virtual concert, one of the gals that was in our show, Sister Act, when she went up to the microphone and was ready to record, she just broke, it makes me cry. She just broke down crying because she hasn't sung in a year and a half. And we had to wait and let her, and then the next one came up and it was the same thing. So I'd like the community to know that these people, these actors, these creative people cannot wait to get back on a stage. And I would hope that all these organizations, that our community supports us, and we've worked hard to be here for them. And we would love them to come to all of our events, right guys? All of our events. We're a team here. So that's it.
Stephanie's crying.
You can.
I'm not crying, you're crying. All right, I want to share another performance here, and then I'll invite Paul. Kim, sorry, you had something to say?
Just very quickly, I remember the first year that the Civic Arts Plaza opened, and there was just such a magic in the air for every single performance that happened, and our community was so hungry for it. And I just remember our first Nutcracker, and just the seats, every show was sold out, and it was like that way for a whole year. And I kind of feel like there's going to be a resurgence of that, where our theater doors have been shut and now they're opening up again. And I just think people are going to come flooding in because of that excitement that this is their theater. This is our community's theater. And they're the only ones that can fill the seats. And I really think all of us are going to see a resurgence, and there's going to be such a joy and an excitement with each time the curtain goes up that I can't wait.
Agreed. So let me just. Wow. Paul, would you like to tell us a sentence or two about this young man?
He's typical of a lot of our kids. We normally have soloists who range in age from 8 or 9 years old up till senior year in high school, at which point they age out. And we're a bit unique in that although we use these extremely talented professional symphony orchestra musicians, they actually are a backdrop for the kids. This is all about the soloists. So the thing that has kept me on the board and working hard to perpetuate TO Phil is that it propels these kids forward in a way that they wouldn't have been able to go forward had they not had this experience. We try to keep very close track on the kids that have gone through the program, and every single one of them will tell us that they learned a life skill that was extremely important as they took on more and more difficult engagements in life. And they go on to be very talented and accomplished professionals. It's really a heartwarming situation. And I will say, although that was a kind of a wow factor performance, what we found is it's the audience watching these performers on stage live that really captures them. I maintain a whole set of seats that I reserve for people who I lure by giving them a free opportunity to come to the concert. And then, of course, we put the arm on them and drain their checkbook. And when they sit there and watch these kids perform, it's an easy thing to do. Every single person that I brought in has just walked away and said, I had no idea. And of course, what I've learned over the years is not to oversell this. I just say, well, why don't you come on down and see this concert and see a couple of these kids perform? Because it is a wow factor. There's no question about it.
Wonderful. Alex, did you have your hand raised?
From earlier, but really it was, first of all, to echo everything Jonathan said. Bravo to TOArts and the arts organizations of this community. And I think to the question of what do we want people to know? I'm so impressed by all of you and just the leadership that you guys have. It's really inspired me over this time. But then also just encouraging, maybe those who are listening who haven't been to hear a live performance and are thinking about all of us coming back. The first time you hear symphonic music or live theater or visual art and you see it in person, it was hard for me every single time to hear a memorable moment of symphonic music or chamber music. The first time I heard it in person, again, it was hard not to tear up. So we got some amazing experiences coming up this coming year.
Yes, indeed we do. And we can't wait to welcome the community back into our theaters. Thank you so very much. Yes, and hopefully, Jonathan, your backdrop will change from an empty theater to a full one, right? Really, really appreciate all of you being here. Jim says it's a tribute to your collective leadership that you've all gotten this far. Here's hoping that as we take small steps in returning to normal, it'll become clear that we can take larger steps and that 2 years becomes 6 months or less. Amen, Jim. On that note, thank you all so much for participating in this recording for our second annual State of the Performing Arts. And I will look forward to seeing you at our third annual, and it'll be in person.